We'd like to welcome all of you to our city council meeting tonight. It's sometimes a rare treat to have this many people join us, and we welcome you each and every time we meet. We're grateful that you can come and spend your evening here, and we're glad that you came to our fiber open house. And we'd like to, my name is Jesse Bell. Our Mayor Harris is out of town today, and she's asked that I fill in for her as Mayor Pro Tem. We'd like to begin with a Pledge of Allegiance and followed by a prayer by Emmy Howell. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Lexi and Lincoln Bell.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This way. Just to that mic. Thank you.
Perfect. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for our many blessings. We are thankful for the country in which we live. We're thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy. We're thankful for our community of Bountiful and the wonderful citizens here. We're thankful for the peaceful discourse and dialogue that we enjoy. We're grateful for all the many things that make Bountiful so wonderful. We're grateful for our unique differences and our unique perspectives. We're grateful that we are guided in our choices and decisions. We pray as we move forward, as we communicate and work with others, both in our community and abroad, that we may always remember to extend grace and to accept grace and to reach out to those and to be community-minded and to always think of the big picture. We pray for our council members and the people who serve our community, that they may be guided with a clear mind and may make the decisions best for our community and the people of Bountiful. We are thankful for all that thou has richly blessed us with, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. We'd like to now have our public comment period. We have this at the beginning of all city council meetings. We'd like to encourage you to state your name and your address and speak into the microphone. This is being broadcast to home, and so we do ask that you use the mic. We will have a public hearing later in the meeting specifically for fiber, and so we'd like to make you aware of that, and if your comment is specifically for fiber, if you wanted to voice that at that time, that would be most appropriate. And you'll have 2 minutes, and we have a maximum of 10 minutes reserved for this. Thank you.
Gary Davis, 2814 South, 500 West. A few meetings ago, I invited all of you to our annual Field Day event, which nobody showed up for. Anyway, let you know, 24-hour event, emergency communications exercise. We made approximately 400 Morse code CW contacts, approximately 50 voice contacts, 30 digital contacts. We had problems with our digital systems, so computers, who knows. We contacted people from Maine, Virginia, North, South Carolina, Florida, throughout the Midwest, California, Washington, Oregon, that's normal stuff. Up into Canada, down to Texas. We even had a few Mexico contacts there. We had approximately 40 visitors. Several folks who saw us there and stopped to see, hey, what's going on? We were happy to have them. We had about 12 people who tried out our GOTA station, get on the air. These are folks who do not have licenses, But we set them down in front of a radio, handed a microphone to them and said, here, talk to somebody someplace else. Had tri-tip, smoked tri-tip for supper, so you missed out on that. And our Saturday morning breakfast, standard bacon, eggs, pancakes, those sort of things. For those that are interested, August 12th, we're holding what we call an Elmer Fest, where ham radio operators will be gathered in the, I keep forgetting the name of it, but it's a park in Centerville that's behind the Home Depot next to the library. Can't get more specific than that. And we'll be there, we're gonna have a pancake breakfast, and we'll be showing off what we can do as ham radio operators. You're all invited. You're invited too.
My name is Joyce Vitalo. Many of you know me now. 1857 South, 400 East. And I appreciate the emails back that I did get from several of you. And my basic concern really about the house updated next to us, and like I said, the permitting department or whatever, Don has been great. My concern is the woman that lives across the street from me, I'm 54 years old this year. She basically moved there. Her sunset now, her sunset years, or days, whatever it is that God chooses, she no longer gets to see the moonrise. What I'm concerned about is how we're planning this, because on the other side, the woman lost her view of the sunset. We have a lovely neighborhood, and I love it here. Like, I really do, I love it. But I'm afraid we're doing things in some kind of vacuum, and maybe it is legitimate in our permitted code, but I think we need to look at it. Because that woman paid 54 years of taxes here, and that's what she gets to look at. And I think that's sad. And this is my neighbor. I'll give her a minute.
I'm Denise Egbert. I live at 1866 Oakmont Drive. And we live in an older neighborhood, little brick rambler homes, and now we've got this monstrosity two-story thing and the worst thing about it, I think, is the outside exterior was not done to match our neighborhood at all. Nothing on it is in the, our houses are all brick with a little bit of siding. This thing is mostly stucco. It's all white, everything is red brick, and it just sticks out and looks horrible. So
We do all
it's
call it the
just-
monstrosity. Everybody in that 2-block
It's-
radius call it the monstrosity. And we
it's
really,
really
we want to
sad.
welcome people and we want them to improve their property, but we would like it to be respectful of the people that have lived here and started it before most of you were born, and me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Steve Meyer, 460 Spring Creek Drive, and I'd like to talk about a couple of experiences I've had with city employees lately. I had this spring, probably one of many people, my residential water started leaking into my basement. It's one of those disappointing things when you walk in and your feet get wet in your basement. Found a contractor who could do it, called the 811, and within 20 minutes, the city crews were out there marking my line, or marking the utilities near my house, so the contractor could legally go and do his work and not risk anybody else's utility. So awesome response. I just really appreciate that, because we didn't know if that line was going to break and just flood the whole basement. And so then a few weeks later, the irrigation line down the street, we heard this, and we had water all the way down the street. And again, city crews were right on the job. Got that line turned off probably within 20 minutes and dug it up, patched it, and within 30 hours, we had asphalt on it again. So great response. I know this spring must have been really interesting for those crews. I saw them on Orchard today over in front of Dick's, and they were doing another spot. But they do a great job. You should be really proud of your staff. Thanks.
Anyone else? Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. We will now move to consider approval of the minutes from June 27th, 2023. there's any discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll now move to council reports. Let's begin with Councilman Bradshaw.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council members and residents, the last couple months, I've been keeping you updated about the South Davis Recreation District and the budget challenges the district has. I'll recap for those that are here. The South Davis Recreation District is made up of the 5 South Davis cities and the unincorporated parts of South Davis County. I serve as Bountiful's representative on the board of directors. And the budget is a bit of a challenge. It's nearly $1 million in the hole. Some of that is pandemic impact related. Some of that is due to various budget decisions that were made by prior boards. The current board has been working to try and figure out how to get the rec district's budget into a sustainable place. There have been some on the board that have felt we should do that purely through tax increases, property tax increases, and others that have felt that we needed to seek a more balanced approach of ensuring that the patrons of the rec districts, especially the competition teams, were appropriately being charged for the use of the facility, that we addressed some budget cuts, and only then maybe look to an inflationary catch-up from all residents of the district. And please keep in mind that all residents of the district contribute to contribute their property taxes to the district, whether or not you happen to use the facilities or have kids that play sports at the facilities. As we've gone back and forth as a board, we've seesawed. There hasn't been great consensus on a path forward. Unfortunately, there was a motion put forward last night in the meeting to propose a 125% property tax increase to address those budget deficits. That motion passed on a vote of 5-3. I voted against it along with the representatives from Centerville and Woods Cross, who see that as greatly concerning, that rather than diving into expenses and figuring out a way to adjust fees, that property tax would be the mechanism to solve the budget challenges at the rec district. I also just want to note that, this is a property tax that would hit all residents, and, there are entities I had hoped would attend and would be there to champion the taxpayers, but they unfortunately weren't there. They were probably engaged in other efforts involving fiber and revenue bonds. But I hope the rest of you will be made aware that there will be a truth in taxation hearing. And if you have concerns about the budget of the Recreation District, I strongly encourage you to attend and be part of that vocal group to help ensure that we are not just taxing our way out of problems, but are looking at comprehensive solutions. And that is my update.
Thank you. I know we appreciate your representation there. Councilwoman Price-Jewish.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. We're just a little report from the Bountiful Davis Arts Center. I'd like to congratulate them on a successful Summer Fest. They did a wonderful job in providing arts and culture to the entire city. Hopefully, some of you were able to attend a couple of those nights. Coming up at the BDAC, just wanted to make everyone aware that there are many classes: pottery, painting, photography, what did I say? Oh, puppetry. How fun does that sound? So lots of classes for people throughout the rest of the summer, and a family art night. Those happen quarterly, and that will be on the 31st of July at 6:30 p.m., and you can register your family or yourself early for that. So a lot of good things happening on Main Street at the Bountiful Davis Arts Center.
Councilwoman Segura Bar.
Only to thank Councilmember Bradshaw for her efforts with the rec district, and to say that it is disappointing that an organization that claims to advocate for taxpayers did not seem to intervene when a real tax increase of 125% was on the table, but instead is intervening when a tax increase isn't on the table for our residents in regard to fiber. So just wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Bradshaw for advocating for our residents when an entity who claims to do so did not.
Councilman Higginson.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Boy, I'd echo the thanks from my colleagues here. Particularly wanted to say thanks to all of you for the good representation that you give Bountiful on the boards that you sit on. I feel like we are significantly better off with you where you are. I want to remind you and also all the folks here today that the mosquito abatement district from the county is available. I know we had a wet spring and we had early monsoon rains come through in June, and the mosquitoes in our yard have been pretty bad. If you have an event coming up for that you're holding in your backyard or in the neighborhood, you can call the mosquito abatement district, and they'll come and spray your yard, and it doesn't cost you anything because you pay for it in your taxes. So if you don't have anything planned, go ahead and plan something and then get your mosquitoes sprayed. That's all I have, Mayor.
For a report from me, just like to remind everybody that we do have a parade on Saturday. I'd like to welcome everybody. You can check out our website for the exact route, but 9 a.m. on Saturday we'll have our parade, and we also have fireworks this weekend. Appreciate all those that have spent hours of coordination making that possible, both staff and volunteers. We also have our summer concerts that's ongoing this summer and on the 4th North Park, and welcome you to come and participate and support that activity as well. Moving on to through our agenda. I know it's July and our BCYC is off, but I just want to confirm with all the heads out there, I don't see anyone from our BCYC, is that correct? For our report there, our Bountiful City Youth Council. I'd like to consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid June 19th and 26th.
Move to approve those as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the monthly report as well from May 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. We'd like to recognize Kathy Lavoie for her service to Bountiful City, and turn the time over to our chief, police chief, Ed Beeler.
Members of the council, thank you for allowing us some time this evening to introduce my good friend, Kathy Lavoie, who has recently retired just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month, and share a few nice things about her and allow her an opportunity to share some things as well. She has been amazing at Bountiful. She's worked there for 35 years, and which is a large part of her life, and lots of dedication and sacrifice on her part to do the job that she did. She started in dispatch, was a dispatch supervisor, a negotiator, and for the last 22 years she was the administrative assistant, and broke in 3 police chiefs, myself included. So speaking from me as a brand new chief, I know that after going through 2 who all 3 of us had very different ways of doing things, I was extremely grateful for her willingness to stick around for at least a few years to help me transition into my role, and I definitely could not have done it without her. She has so much institutional knowledge, Her friendship and dedication and loyalty is unmatched, and I owe her a great debt of gratitude for all that she's done for me personally and all of our employees. She was a confidant to many, and definitely my closest confidant that I had at the PD, and it was just amazing to work with. So I thank you for allowing me some time to be able to share some thoughts with you about her, and I'll give her a little bit of time now to say whatever she wants, I guess.
Well, you may be wondering why I felt it necessary to come here tonight to express my gratitude. I honestly felt like it would be ungrateful for me. I've worked here 35 years, and the opportunities that I've had at Bountiful City have been overwhelming. And the things that I have learned, lifelong lessons. The police department gave me a really fabulous going-away party, retirement party, but I still felt the need. I wanted to talk to the council. Long story short, 1988, I needed a job. I had a girlfriend that worked as a dispatcher at Bountiful Police. She told me they were hiring, and so I put in an application, went through the process, which is a very long process. It's much better now. So when Chief Higgins called me in to offer me the job, we went through, are you okay with shift work, and how do you work this out with your kids and other duties as a son, went through the things just to inform me of, what to expect. Right before he offered the job, he said, I'm going to ask you to commit for a year. Do you think you can work here a year? And I thought it was a really odd question because, of course, I would work here a year. I needed a job. But it wasn't until I started training and found out how difficult and challenging it was that's why that commitment, he asked me to keep that commitment. I didn't know anything about the police department. I knew I would be answering phones and 911 calls. I had no clue what else was involved. So it was definitely a learning experience for me. And many times I'd go home and think, I can't do this. I can't do this. Oh, I promised Chief Higgins, and I need a job. So I went through that self-talk several times through that first year. Was able to make it through the first year. Loved it. Lifelong friends. But the thing that I wanted to point out is that one commitment for the 1 year took me 35. And what a blessing to me. Another thing I wanted to mention is how supportive the City Council has been to the police department. And I'm sure you know how much it was appreciated, but to know that you guys really supported the police department was really amazing. Great leaders in the city, Gary, I don't want to name names because you're all important, but I just appreciate the opportunity. I also wanted to let you know, which I think you already do, that the leadership of the police department is fantastic. Our current police chief, Ed Beeler, it's been really fun because I have gone through three different police chiefs, so it's been fun to sit back and watch each of their styles and how different they do things. And when Ed came in, it was just fun to sit back and watch him get his leadership together and the cooperation and the support that he had from his administrators, assistant chief, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, dispatch supervisor, record supervisor. It was really amazing and comforting to know that there was so much support. Was it always easy? No, but nothing ever is. You always have the ups and downs. But the other thing that I learned is when you get down, you get back up and you try again. And that was definitely an accomplishment for me. One other thing, so I've been doing this for 35 years. It's going to take me a minute to get into the retirement mode. Family and I, we went, the grandkids, we all went on a trip. And then I came home and it's like, oh gosh, now what do? I don't go to work tomorrow. A couple of days later, I woke up and thought, I don't have to put the Christmas tree up this year. Bizarre. And Galen, you'll be happy to know this, I even thought, I think I'd rather do the budget. No, so I just, again, wanted to express my appreciation and just, again, to remind you what great leaders you have, officers, all employees. They're great people, and I appreciate your support. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Kathy, thank you so much for your service. And you mentioned that the city council has been supportive of our police department, but I want to say our police department's supportive of our city, and I really appreciate the service and sacrifices that all of you make on our behalf each and every day. I'd like to move forward with to consider preliminary and final approval of the Healing Garden Plat A of the Bountiful Cemetery from Todd Christensen.
Mayor Pro Tem, if it's okay, I'll take that one.
Wonderful.
We gave Mr. Christensen the night off tonight. A couple of years ago, the cemetery staff put together a plan to create a healing garden down at the cemetery in anticipation of running short on other urn burial spaces. If you've been down there recently, you know that there's already a columbarium in place, and the plan is to provide other burial options for those who've chosen to be cremated, whether it's in a granite boulder or in a bench. We've listed some options there in our memo for in-ground niches, but the plat for this area of the cemetery is much like a subdivision plat, except it applies to burials. And our cemetery staff will keep track of the various, I'm going to call them improvements, whether it's a bench or a rock or whatever, located in each one of these lots in this phase of the healing garden as a way to sell and track who's using those specific niches. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. We do think that our estimate of 225 spaces is conservative, could yield a few more than that, but it's becoming a very popular option, and we anticipate placing another columbarium in the healing garden, I think, in this budget year.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? No. Any motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion. Well, first of all, I just want to say, I think this has been done so beautifully and thoughtfully by everyone involved, and I really appreciate those who are at the cemetery and Parks Department and everyone involved in this. I think this is going to be a wonderful addition to our cemetery.
We need to give credit where credit's due, and that is to Brock Hill, our Parks Director, who's a landscape architect, and he put a lot of time and thought and energy into putting this together. It really is a wonderful place,
Yeah.
to his credit.
Agreed. Well, I would like to make a motion that we approve the preliminary and final subdivision for the Bountiful Cemetery Healing Garden Plat A.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to now consider approval of the purchase of an International HX cab and chassis from the Bountiful City landfill and a dump body from Williamson Godwin Truck Body Company in the amount of $197,551 by Craig Christensen. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, for having me here today. Talk about this dump truck for a minute. As part of our budget this year, we budgeted in our capital for this dump truck replacement, $200,000 for that. And it just so happened that the landfill got approval back in February for a truck, for a maintenance truck down at the landfill. That truck was a little undersized in the front axle. So it couldn't be utilized for what they needed it for, putting a crane on it and things like that. Asked if we wanted to purchase it for one of our dump trucks, because we don't need that big front end on it. So talked to the staff about this and thought that it would probably be a good idea. The only thing, we needed to get a couple bids for a dump bed on this, and so we got a couple different bids for that. We reached out to 3, but we could only get the 2. So as far as this goes, we've talked through staff about this, Public Works Director, City Manager, and Landfill Director, and it is staff recommendation that we purchase the International XD cab and chassis from the Bountiful landfill for $160,000, along with the Williamson Godwin 16-foot dump bed for $37,551 for a total price of $197,51. If there's any questions, I'll answer those.
Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to note, I thought this was great coordination between the Water Department and the Streets and Sanitation Department. We've had a couple different instances of the creative thinking by our Streets and Sanitation Director to find ways to save money. You know, our recycling program going in-house is just one of those, and I thought this was a great example as I read through our materials this month about realizing that there was an asset that could be better used by a different department, especially as we've faced ongoing struggles in procuring vehicles with pandemic vehicle shortages. And so wanted to offer my kudos to both departments in finding this way to be economical with our resources and making sure that we had the vehicles necessary for when we have to dig up things to repair water lines. With that, I'm happy to make a motion to approve this purchase.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'd like to now move into our public hearing to receive regarding our issuance of the sales tax revenue bonds. I'd like to turn that time over to Galen Rasmussen at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. We've had a chance tonight to talk a little bit about fiber, haven't we? And this is a component of that discussion, is that we must hold a public hearing on the issuance of the bonds before they're issued. And so in May, we approved the contract with Utopia Fiber, and on the 13th of June, we had a super parameters resolution that gave the spelling out of the things that could take place in the bonding process. The next step in our process in this project is to have this public hearing that will consider the issuance of bonds. The notice was posted of this public hearing on June 14th, and it's required by state code to receive input for the public with respect to the issuance of sales tax bonds and the potential economic impact that the project could have on the private sector. The City Council is asked to hold the public hearing on these sales tax revenue bonds. No action is required other than holding the public hearing. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council to Galen?
Just one. Mr. Asmussen, does the code say what the hearing is for?
Gaining public input
Just gaining public input in general?
on the process and any impacts that the private sector would have, the construct of the bond, anything that might be related to it.
Thanks.
Any other questions? We'd now like to open the meeting up to the public. We'd encourage you to come to the pulpit, state your name and your address. We do ask and know that you will be respectful in your comments. We'd also like to invite all our Bountiful residents first, and everybody will have a chance to share comment, but I'd like to encourage the residents first, if that's okay. And the time is now yours.
Ray Nod, 144 Viewcrest Circle, Bountiful. Again, I want to thank the City Council for their diligence in reviewing this. I don't have Comcast. In fact, I don't have any wired carrier at all for my internet. I use T-Mobile, It's average download speeds running about 250 to 300 megabits per second. I pay $40 a month for that internet. I know fiber is faster, but I don't think that there's probably 99% of us don't need faster than 300 megabytes per second. I know that 10 years ago, somebody told me I could have speeds like that for my internet without having any wires going to my home. I would have laughed at them and said, yeah, right, how could that be? And so my question is, 10 years down the road, we have a balance of $55–60 million on this $83 million bond, and suddenly a technological breakthrough occurs that makes fiber look like the old dial-up. I can't see the future, so I don't know if this is going to happen, but I don't believe that you guys have a crystal ball either. So my question is, if this does happen, if that possibility does exist, where does that leave Bountiful City residents with another $55 million or so owing on a bond when nobody wants it because it's no longer state-of-the-art? And so that was my first question. And the other question I had was, last meeting we were told that there was no way possible that this could go on the ballot. Legally, it wasn't allowed. I've done some research on that, and there's a thing called a advisory question that any city, state, county can put on the ballot. It's non-binding, but basically just a questionnaire asking the citizens of that entity what their opinion is on a certain matter, whether they're in favor or not. Now, again, I know it's non-binding, but as the elected officials, I know you guys like to represent the people that elected you, so I'm sure that you guys would consider what their votes were in making this decision. So I just know, first of all, then it can be put on the ballot, and I just want to make sure that you guys have a good crystal ball, because mine says I can't see 30 years down the road. Thank you.
Scott Bradshaw, 24 East, 1400 South, Bountiful here. I moved from Centerville with Utopia and just wanted to express my gratitude to the City Council. I think has done a great job in looking at everything involved with the fiber plan. Excited to have it here because I think those speeds are needed, especially for those of us that do work from home and have other things going on in the home with kids and everything. So I think a lot of thought was put into it. I think they have the best interest of our residents, and just wanted to express my gratitude. So thank you guys.
Jay Holt, 132 West Sterling Drive, Bountiful. You guys have done a phenomenal job in fine-tuning this process over the last 3 years. I've watched it. I've been here, commented. T-Mobile networks, I guarantee you're going to get saturated. Go to Rice-Cycle Stadium for a football game and try and get on Verizon on your cell phone. It takes forever. Same thing's going to happen with saturation in T-Mobile if we all jump on wireless internet. Saturation happens, and they're not building towers fast enough, you know. So the fiber solution is absolutely the best. I question everybody that says why government shouldn't be in fiber. Well, why did the U.S. government spend billions of dollars through the CARES Act to put fiber into rural parts of this country and here in Utah? Like I've stated in other meetings, I've personally bought thousands upon thousands of miles of fiber and the conduit and the infrastructure for Utopia, for Google, and for CenturyLink. Utopia is absolutely the best performer. And if you don't, the thing of it is, if you don't want it, you don't have to sign up for it. So it's not going to increase your monthly bills. If you don't want it, you don't need it. Nobody's forcing them to sign on. And I don't know that enough people in the city realize that. So those are my comments. You guys have done a phenomenal job. I hate to see this process delayed any further. We're an island in South Davis. Centerville has it, Woods Cross has it, North Salt Lake has the network. We now need to get this network built and done, and we should not delay any further. This taxpayer association, I think, is misleading the people with their petition, and it's wrong, absolutely wrong what they're doing. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Steve Meyer, 460 Spring Creek Drive. I think it's a great idea, and it's a great project. I appreciate all the thought you've put into it and the strategy that you're using. I believe that having Bountiful own this creates an asset for the city that's a long-term asset. Whereas, that Comcast line up there, you don't own it, they could take it out anytime. It allows as many ISPs that want to come in can get on it. It's going to give competition to us, the consumer. We're going to have choices that are competing against each other, so we're going to have an opportunity to do that. We are an island here. I think it's a disadvantage to us, as me as a property owner, to not have a system like this in our community. There's organizations that say that government should not be in the business of business. There's simple approach to that. Well, I think that is overly simple. And Bountiful's different. We own our power company. We know how to manage a business type situation in Bountiful. So I have no question that you're going to be able to manage this cable system. You own it or you're in contract with Utopia for 10 years, and after that you'll have the option of contracting that out or taking on the ownership. You have a lot of flexibility with this. I think that adds value to this proposal as well. So I think, and I know that time is money. My work for the last 17 years prior to retiring was building rail lines, and we could not accept delays. It just cost us so much money with inflation and just the time value of delay. So it's unfortunately you've been delayed this far, and hopefully you don't lose any more time and can move forward with this, because I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, City Council. My name is Von Andrus. I'm at 2238 Penman Lane in Bountiful. We finally have lived in Bountiful long enough to say that we've been here a short time. We've been here 33 years. I've been content on most, if not many, issues to defer to the wisdom of the City Council members, and appreciate that from time to time there are issues that arise which create a stir and an interest within the community. From time to time, the issues that attract attention may be because of a vocal element who has some specific concerns. And I'm fine with those concerns being expressed. But at this particular moment, I'm here to express my opinion and my feeling, my thoughts, that the City Council that the Bountiful citizens have elected are the ones on this particular issue to be the ones to make an informed and studied out decision. As I have looked at what has been done in preparation and study for this particular issue, I have been satisfied that it has been done in an open and attitude that was seeking for as the best information possible in a complete way. I am concerned that those who have expressed concerns about this particular issue have not represented themselves or the issue in a similar way. And because of that, I would like to once again say that I support the council in their decision to contract and hope that they will be able to move ahead as contracted. I would also like to go on record as saying that any time that an issue is being looked at and concerns are raised where incomplete information is offered, and then people are trying to affect my attitude by offering incomplete information, that is something which concerns me. And because of that, when the petition person came to my home and began with the part about the amount of money that would cost the citizens, how much money this particular issue would cost the citizens of Bountiful and the city of Bountiful, I expressed that my understanding was that with a revenue bond that the subscribers who chose to participate would be the ones that pay it, that the quantifiable risk involved in that particular project was far outweighed, and that the track record itself, as studied out, particularly as well, supported going ahead with the issue. So for those two particular things, my willingness to support the city council as far as they have studied it out and correctly, and Bountiful City has supported that to that end, I am in favor of. The people who have expressed concerns about the issue have done so in a way which was providing incomplete information and seemed to paint the project in a way that people would jump to conclusions without proper information. That's been a concern to me. As a result of that, I felt it necessary for the first time to come to a city council meeting and express those things, and am grateful for the opportunity and express my gratitude to you for that. Thank you.
Paul Child, 69 Viewcrest Circle, Bountiful. My wife and I moved here from Salt Lake, built a home first home in Bountiful in 1977. Bountiful's always had a great track record of financial stability, well run, and thank you for all that you do. My background is business, and I've had the opportunity to travel the world in that. I was impressed in the early 2000s when I went to Asia and found at that time, and I expressed this to a couple of you already tonight, how impressed I was with their communication system in Vietnam and places. Even in Japan, you think they're all technologically advanced. But it became apparent in many of those places, some of these places that were third world countries, that they had not even bothered to build out infrastructure because they jumped over the requirement to build infrastructure and the cost and the time to catch up with the rest of the world by going wireless. And so each person there had a phone in one pocket for their house, one pocket for their business. And they communicated just like we did. I'm amazed at the technological advances that happen. And we are advancing at such speed. I won't be around that many years to see the great things that happen, but I know this much. I would never have ever believed that in my pocket, my wireless phone, that I could have the capabilities that I have. And my concern is the fact that we don't want to be ending up with a dinosaur. We want to make certain whatever we do, that this system will indeed last as long as the bond, and that we're not stuck with a white elephant. If this were 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here raising this question because I knew we would have 20 years to go. But we're sort of on the tail end of this. And so I just ask you to consider that. Be careful and cognizant of those concerns as well. I hope you visited with all of the specialists. I know that the things out there, the potential we have in today's world are well beyond anything that we can contemplate here as a group. So just be mindful of that. I'd hate to have us have that situation. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all you do each and every day.
Jason Holt, 3233 South, 75 East. Been here just a moment, just a few years. I moved to Bountiful. Got a lot of thoughts, but there's been some talk about 5G. I've been a ham radio operator 20 years. Really, I've done a lot with Wi-Fi and RF. At the end of the day, it's a shared medium. Yes, computational power gets faster, but it's still shared. You're still in one room talking. You've got to wait for the next person to stop talking. So fiber is a known proven tech. 5G only works because of fiber. Yes, we could go 5G, but now we've built a tower on every block for every few homes. It doesn't work. It's not, and at the end of the day, fiber to the home or business is the end goal. Everything else is a stopgap. It's not just speed. It's latency, it's connection, it's peering, it's how quickly can you get to another set of networks? How do you talk to each other? I'm fortunate. I have fiber at my house, thanks to a federal handout from the Connect America Fund 2. I frankly find it shameful that CenturyLink only provides gigabit fiber to some Bountiful neighborhoods. Gigabit fiber has worked really well at my house. I don't think about it, it just works. It's an understatement to say it has improved my ability to work and live in Bountiful. I still plan to switch to Bountiful fiber, as local support and ownership are important to me, and I feel strongly that everyone should have the option of gigabit fiber. Having a connection that just works has been fantastic. As demonstrated specifically in the last few weeks with paid-for signature gathering efforts, the current landline providers are entrenched in the status quo and would rather fight to stay in power than allow competition that would allow customers to choose a provider on their own merits. Healthy competition brings better offering from all providers. We've seen it in Salt Lake. We saw it in Provo. Comcast drastically reduced the prices, reduced the contract terms, increased speeds. They were the first markets to get a lot of those. And we talk about how fiber is not really, the same fiber we're using is the same fiber we used 20 years ago. The electronics have changed, but the electronics are really cheap and easy to switch. They're not in the dirt, they're not in the ground. I'd like to specifically state the Utah Taxpayers Association is clearly lobbying for business interests. They don't speak for me, and in my opinion, do not represent the best interests of Bountiful or their residents. I believe the actions in the last few weeks speak to whose interests they do represent, specifically the large multinational interests of Comcast and Lumen, formerly CenturyLink. A large part of Utopia's early financial woes was in large part due to the financial and litigious dealings brought about in part by the existing providers. They delayed, and delayed availability and solvency. There's a reason we're talking about it today and not 20 years ago like the original cities of Utopia. Bountiful Fiber carries the promise of nearly universal availability. The knowns, local support, a choice between providers, a known technology upgrade path. I mean, it's the same fiber we've been using 20 years. First it was 100 megabit and then gigabit and then goes on from there, right? And faster than you need at home, but you know where it's going. The technology's already there. So Mayor, council members, Mayor Pro Temp, I guess. Thank you for your efforts to make Bountiful the great place to live that it is. Thank you for selecting a City on Utopia fiber operated platform for competition that might make connectivity better in Bountiful. Competition works. Let's make the current and complacent internet providers actually compete for our dollars. Thank you.
Holly Keddington, 122 Viewcrest Drive. I guess I want to thank Utah Taxpayers Association, and I might be in the minority here, but I am very grateful that somebody stepped up and was able to get a petition going to get this on the ballot. If I'm not mistaken, this $47 million bond is the largest bond that we've had in over 50 years. I think the taxpayers, me, I've been here the whole 65 years. My taxes, I think I need to get a say. I'm not necessarily pro or anti-fiber, but I think this large amount of money should be determined by the citizens. I'm also concerned that you talk about a 40% take rate. And in my mind, if you only expect 40% of the citizens to take this service, that means 60% do not. That's a concern to me. That's not a majority. So if Bountiful citizens vote that they want fiber through the city, I'm all for it. But I think the citizens deserve a chance. This is the wrong place, but I'm concerned about our rec center. We had a property tax raise, what, a year or two ago? It sounds like we're gonna get one with the rec center. And my thought is, if somebody can't take care of the rec center and make it profitable, get rid of whoever that is and get somebody who can. So I hope we have the same kind of person that can honestly take care of an internet provider like this, because I don't think we have the experience. Hopefully we can get it. But I come back to let the citizens decide. Let them vote on it. Thank you.
Let me just, as you come to the pulpit, let me just mention, If the comment's already been shared, maybe you can stand up and just say, I echo that comment, or let's, we welcome all your comments and the length you'd like, but also want to be conscientious of time too, so thank you.
Connie Haddon, 1821 Oakmont Drive. And I do appreciate that the Taxpayer Association, even if they're backed by competitors, you know, that they're giving or trying to give us the right to vote. And I wasn't aware of the 60-40%, you know, of who's for or against it. But I'd ask the council members to consider that before they make their vote, and that they might decide to put this off for another year or so. I mean, interest rates are at the very highest. I talked to someone who said that the interest rate using the sales tax would be, I think it was 4.7% as, you know, the guarantee. And if it was not, it would be like 7-something%. I'm not sure of the exact amounts. So it would be higher, but wait for another year. Maybe it'd be 2%, you know, instead of 4%, and that's double the interest that would be paying. Also, when I was coming to the meeting tonight, I just looked on the internet. It looks like about 97% of the citizens in Bountiful already have the internet. This is more a want versus a need. I think people are maybe not always happy that they don't have the speed, but it's not something that is urgent enough to spend $42 million of our taxpayer money over 30 years, where changes, you know, this other gentleman mentioned that, you know, things keep changing, and I agree with that, ditto on that. So I'm going to get my name on the ballot, on the petition, so that it does get on the ballot, and I'm hoping people will vote against it because we have what we need. When I looked also on the internet, there's quite a few providers, not just T-Mobile. There's CenturyLink, and their plans start at $30. Xfinity, they start at $35. T-Home Internet, maybe that's T-Mobile, I don't know, $50. VIASAT, Viasat, I've never heard of them, $70. HughesNet, $50. There's so many other providers that already are giving us that chance to look at the competitive market and decide, you know, where we want to spend our money. And a lot of these rates, the beginning rates are a lot lower than what you're projecting. Maybe some people might want to spend $250 for the high speed. Great. But I'm hoping that people will take a look at this, and I hope this does go on the ballot and that people will vote no against putting that kind of money at risk. Even if it's a small risk, it's still my money, and you're putting it at risk.
Thank you. Are there any other residents or non-residents that'd like to share their feelings? And we'll also have, we'll invite, this isn't a full question answer, but we will have staff that have been making notes of questions and comments, and they'll provide information following as well.
My name is Ike Bradshaw, 36 East, 1400 South. I'm currently a resident of Bountiful that's lucky enough to have fiber through CenturyLink. It's excellent to have fiber. I think that Bountiful City is looking forward to the future. I think we've been lucky enough to have things like the power plant that have been a great investment for the city. I go to the dump all the time, and I'm amazed by the foresight that someone had to purchase the dump so that we don't have to drive out to who knows where. You know, we're recycling compost and selling it back to people. I think Bountiful has a good track record of investigating things and making sure they pencil out. I manage a big apartment complex in Bountiful. I know that all of my residents that live there would love to have fiber as an option there. And it would make businesses more appealing, especially the one that I work at. I trust the city council. I think that in a way we are getting a vote because we elected these officials up here. And I'd like to have you guys use your talents for our benefit. Thank you.
I'm Linda Child. I live at 69 Viewcrest Circle, and I want to tell you how I appreciate all of your service. But this particular item is a bit concerning to me. and my husband. I pulled off from the internet, from the Office of the State Auditor, dated May 31st, 2022, which was just a year ago, that since 2004, the 11 municipalities listed below have used taxpayer funds to pay the entity's revenue bond debt service for this utopia. And in fiscal year 2021, which was just 2 years ago, the municipalities paid more than $15 million as follows. Brigham City, $504,700. Centerville, $501,950. Layton, $2,519,273, and so forth. So they are paying additional, and that was 2 years ago. I don't have what they paid this last year. But I think you ought to consider that. If they're paying that and they've continued to pay, what's going to happen to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Rusty Cannon, President of the Utah Taxpayers Association. Our names come up a lot in the last few meetings, so we appreciate the chance to say a few comments. We were founded over 100 years ago and have been fighting against utopia and government-owned networks for over 20 years at least. Bountiful is one of many Utah cities to propose government-owned fiber. We have opposed all of these attempts in principle and have actively campaigned against many of them. Bountiful is in no way unique. Our opposition is based solely on the risk to taxpayers and is keeping with our core principles and purpose. We are consistent in our position and do not take cues from evil big business or dark money. Government should never be in the business of business. That's been our theory for 100 years. There's no secret agenda trying to hide who is gathering signatures. We have always been upfront about that. There's no effort to mislead voters as signatures are gathered. No amount of hearsay posted on Facebook will change this fact. Over 90% of people that have been home have gladly signed the petition. Staff gave false information at the last meeting about not being able to put this issue on the ballot. It was repeated by one city council member. That is false. Not only does state code allow it, the city of Kaysville just did exactly this 3 years ago. Voters wisely rejected the proposal, and a private company is just now finishing fiber in the city with no government support or taxpayer-backed risky debt. You continue to make false claims that there is no cost or risk in this operation. That is also false. We will continue to tell the truth that when take rates, if they are not anywhere near your forecast of 35%, just to break even, this project will fail and tax revenue will be drained from your general fund to pay the $2.7 million due on the debt every year for the next 35 years. Take rates published by Utopia show many cities similar to Bountiful below your break-even projections. You are tying the city to a sinking ship in Utopia that is now over $300 million in the hole. Feasible, secure alternatives exist, as was demonstrated in Kaysville. Our association or anyone else has the legal right to do what we are doing, and no amount of intimidation from the city will stop us. This will be on the ballot in November, so the 22,000 voters in Bountiful can have their say. I'd like to close with one quote from Congressman John Curtis, former Provo City Mayor. They spent over $30 million building their network and sold it to Google Fiber for $1. He said this, quote, "We had to come to terms with the fact that we had a decade-old network, and just like a computer that's a decade old, it was near worthless. Technology advances so quickly that what is cutting edge today may be obsolete in just a few months. The whole experience taught me that government-owned broadband networks have serious flaws that prevent their success. First, investing in broadband networks involves risk. Even well-financed and experienced private operators lose money. Taxpayers don't sign up for such risk, nor should taxpayer dollars be spent on such risky ventures. Last, we just wanted to say, if this is such a good project and such a good idea, then why are you afraid to put it on the ballot and give the voters a chance to say? Thank you."
Nathan Long, 945 East, 500 South.
I hate doing this. I didn't want to do this. Anyways, I feel pressured and I never say what I want to say, so that's why I hate doing it. But I don't have anything against fiber. I don't think fiber is that antiquated. I don't think fiber is on its way out. Yeah, it's an old technology. It's been around my whole life. I remember watching things on PBS on Sesame Street when I was little about fiber in Europe. I don't think it's a bad thing, though. I think there are other options, yes. Do I think they're better? I don't know. Time will tell. But my biggest question, my biggest concern I have about fiber, about the way the city is doing this right now, is I'm worried about the citizens, such as me, being stuck on the hook for this if I don't want to pay, if I don't want to subscribe to it. That's my biggest concern. I don't think people should be burdened down with a government-sponsored program like this if they don't want to use it. Whether you use it or not, I don't agree with that. I think if you want it, fine, pay for it, but I think the cities and the government bureaucracies need to stay out of it. I don't think it's something that the city, I would kind of agree. I don't think government agencies need to get into this kind of stuff. I think they need to stay out of it. I've always thought that, just like federal government. Stick with national defense. That's what you need to do. Stay out of my life. And I kind of agree with, and I think that's the way it is on a personal level too. I think if there is a private-owned company that can provide a service, let them provide the service. Government bureaucracies shouldn't step in on their toes and run them out of business. It happens all the time, and I disagree with it. I think Bountiful, if they really are this adamant about it and they really feel that this good of a decision for Bountiful, I totally think it should be on the ballot. Because it's a lot of money, 47 million, 48 million, 80-something million. I mean, I've heard a lot of numbers. If it's that much money, I think the city council should trust the citizens enough to make a decision with that. This isn't a hurry and let's hurry up and do this. We all know whenever you hurry up and do something, you make a bad decision. You've already been talking about it for at least 3 years. Utopia's been around for 20-something years. It's been around forever, right? It's not going away. We have time to think about this. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a step back and going, is this really what the citizens of Bountiful want? The only way to do that is put it on the ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any last comments? Let's do maybe one more or two more, if that's okay, please.
I didn't bring any notes, and I wasn't going to say anything. So I apologize if this doesn't come out the way that it should. But my name is Brooke Freebairn. I live on 400 East here in Bountiful. And I was born on 400 East here in Bountiful. My background is not in business. My background is in Bountiful. My parents have lived in Bountiful their whole lives. My grandparents, both sides, have lived here. Great-grandparents have lived here. I believe that Bountiful is unique. I disagree wholeheartedly with the statement that Bountiful is not unique. I think that was offensive. And I think some of this has been a little bit painful. I am one of the most pro-fiber people in this room, as you all know, and have not spoken at this podium yet. But I have spoken to many of you at length. And I have not always agreed with many of you. But I do believe in the dozens of meetings that I have attended on this subject that it has been well studied. I believe that you have done your due diligence, and I believe that a great number of the residents of this community voted for you for this specific reason. We believe that this is an important issue. We believe this is one of the most important impacts that the city council could have in Bountiful in recent years. I speak maybe a little bit for the more millennial generation. And our family had Utopia in 2008, and it was exceptional. But we have been back in Bountiful for a long time now, and our needs are not met by the private sector. They are not even close to being met by the private sector. We have sought dozens of private solutions for our property. We have had bids ranging from $250,000 to our home to solve our internet problem, even though my parents live across the street and have Comcast. There are problems in Bountiful with this infrastructure. I believe as a community that we want life to be better for each other and with each other. And when we see a neighbor that needs sewer, we hook them up. And we see a neighbor that needs water, we want their needs to be met. For many years, we paid for Weber water that we never used because our community as a whole is served by a city that has infrastructure that meets our needs. I just would say to any of the residents here in this meeting who have their internet needs met, please consider those of us who do not. Those of us who have lost income, those of us who cannot adequately do our jobs, those of us who cannot easily educate 6 children at home using the internet bandwidth that we have. These are future needs, and the foresight that you show in studying this issue the way that you have will serve Bountiful, and we support you wholeheartedly. Thank you.
I echo her sentiments.
One more if there is anyone. Otherwise, we'll close the.
Gary Davis, 2814 South, 500 West. Bountiful fiber, good.
All right. Thank you all for having the courage to share your feelings and your opinions with us, and we appreciate that. I know there's a wide variety of information that's out there, and I'd like to turn the time over to Galen or Gary or some of the staff to maybe answer that, or any questions or comments that the other council members have as well.
Pardon me, I think there were just a couple of statements that we could address that were mentioned. First, about being on the ballot. It is correct that there is an opportunity for an opinion question on the ballot, but that is non-binding. There is that we have found any authorization that says a city may put a sales tax bond on the ballot. Just because Kaysville did it, it has not been litigated, does not mean it's legal. We are choosing to not do that because we don't believe there's authorization for it. And it's okay if Mr. Cannon and Bountiful disagree on that point. Reasonable people can disagree. As far as the question of the 40% take rate, I'm not sure where that came from, but the point that was made by me in the open house was that in order to break even, 35%, we needed a 35% take rate. That's not that only 35% of the people will sign up. We actually expect much higher take rates, but that was a minimum number to break even. And as I mentioned in the open house, we believe based on the data given to us by Utopia, that which with the take rates we've seen in other similar communities, we're very comfortable with that assumption. Just a question or a comment too, maybe about that was made about the amount of risk that was made and whether or not taxpayer dollars are at risk. I think it's safe to say that had people attended all the meetings, they would have heard, and you can check all of our minutes. We're going to post all of the minutes to our meetings as well as all of the YouTube conversations we have, thanks to Miranda, who I think did a YouTube channel for that. You can check all of that information over the last 3 years, but we've had lengthy conversations with the city council about the risk potentially involved and the fact that, as I reiterated tonight again in the open house, that yes, if take rates do not exceed 35%, there will be a general fund requirement to help pay for the debt service, but once those rates are exceeded, then we can pay back the general fund. Is this a risk-free operation? Of course not. I don't think the landfill was. I don't think the power utility was there. I don't think the town we know the town square wasn't. So we've tried to be open about the risk, but I suppose it would have taken someone to attend all of the meetings to really understand the degree to which that was discussed with the city council. And I understand that if people haven't taken the time to do that, they might not appreciate that. Finally, I think it's up to the council, but I think it might be worthwhile to have a representative from Utopia, Roger Timmerman, if he's still here. Is Roger here? I don't know if he's here either. I was going to say have them talk about the difference between the original Utopia cities and the UIA cities that have come after. There was a statement made by me that was vetted by Utopia in the meeting that since 2009, no bonding that has been done by Utopia for any cities has required any tax dollars to be paid for, and that's true. That's an accurate statement. The original Utopia cities, who bonded under a different set of bonds and a different organization, just Utopia by itself, and had a different method of installing their fiber, have an obligation that they are still repaying. That was a completely different model of how to install fiber. The original Utopia cities essentially started kind of piecemeal. They were chasing areas in the different cities, as I understand it, that were where there was interest, and so they never completed the construction in any one of those cities. In 2009, that model changed. Utopia began to bond through what they called UIA, and those cities, the construction was started and completed, which allowed people throughout the community to quickly achieve their take rates. So since 2009, there has been no tax subsidy of any bond payments. Utopia righted the ship, which is why, despite a lot of skepticism by the council at the beginning of this process, and those who, again, who've been paying attention to this would know how much skepticism this city council and city had about Utopia, bless their hearts. We feel very comfortable. They're a reasonable, good partner, and we're very comfortable that we can achieve the take rates necessary. I think those were the points that I wanted to reiterate. Council, and I'm happy to, if you remember other questions or there are other comments or questions for staff, I'm sure that we can try to answer those.
May I ask a clarifying question, Mayor Pro Tem?
Please.
Gary, you mentioned that, just explaining how the Utopia model changed in 2009. Is that how, when Mrs. Child was referencing those cities that were paying still at this time and was in the state audit report, those cities were built out prior to 2009, correct?
They weren't even built out. That was part of the problem.
Correct.
Yeah, they banded together, they bonded together. Some of those cities are not yet even built out, from what I understand, mostly, but not all.
And that is why they were listed in the state audit.
Yes. So
Correct.
those cities are still, they pledged their property, I don't know if they pledged their property tax. I'm not going to go on record about what they pledged. We have people here who could say. I'm going to have, Jason, thank you. I'm going to ask Jason Birmingham, can you come up and explain that? Maybe you can share who you are, and I'm glad that I caught you out of the corner of my eye. I don't want to misspeak.
Jason Birmingham, good evening. Lewis Young Robertson in Birmingham. I'm principal and owner there. We've been involved in municipal finance. We're the financial advisor to the city of Bountiful and have been for a number of years. I think the question of Utopia in terms of the subsidy or the taxpayer dollars that have been used for the initial infrastructure that was put in place is accurate. Up till 2009, each of the cities pledged either local option sales tax, which is sales tax bond, or a combination of municipal energy taxes. So franchise taxes that would come from power, a franchise tax on power bills or natural gas bills. That's how it was supported. Many of those weren't built out at the time, even though the capital was stranded. And so you didn't have take rates associated with paying the revenues. So they're catching up. So they've had to go issue additional debt under UIA, which has actually started to build out most, if not all, of the cities. Gary's correct. Not all of them are still build out, but many of them that lagged, Layton, West Valley, Orem, have all made significant strides towards that. And those bonds are self-sustaining and are financed with the user revenues that come from the system. But there is, I think there was a comment made, fair comment, that there was some stranded capital infrastructure, major backbone infrastructure that everyone that participates in their fiber network is benefiting from. It's those 11 cities that are kind of carrying the load still on those to get it to this point. So the good thing about this model is, one, you own it, so the infrastructure is owned. Unlike UIA, where you would still have to backstop it or provide your credit or security on behalf of the ability for UIA to issue it, but then UIA would own it. In this case, the city deliberated, studied, determined that ownership of it, of the asset, was an important criteria here. So this model's different even than the UIA or the Utopia. This is solely similar to, like, I'd consider your utility, where you own the infrastructure, you deploy it, and you use a contractor to help market and sell and provide those services. And then open network so that there's multiple ISPs that get to use that. So I think that's a distinction there, but we're anticipating now with the UIA cities, the West Valley, Orem, Layton, all of those that have kind of reached that critical mass, now all of that has been used is also anticipated to be paid back that happened before 2009. That's the plan, but it's still going to take a little bit of time. So I hope that addressed that particular question.
Yes, it does. And so for our intent and purpose, anything that has been issued since 2009, there has never had to be a draw on
Correct.
on tax revenue, not taxes, tax revenue. And I think that's also important for our residents to understand. We're talking about tax revenue, not property tax.
Correct. It's
And
sales
which-
tax and.
To which there's a huge difference. So,
Yep,
okay,
that's-
thank you
that's
for that
true.
clarification.
Mr. Birmingham, one more question. Just to clarify, if it's not absolutely obvious, Bountiful City would not be obligated, by partnering with Utopia, we would not be obligated to pay any previous bonds by any other municipality at
I'm
all.
glad you mentioned that. That was the last thing that I meant to say is you're not part of Utopia by virtue of this contract. Utopia was a interlocal governmental agency that was created. They were the issuer of the bonds. They were the 11 primary cities. They're still obligated for, I think it was mentioned 300 million. I think it's a little less than $300 million. Some of that has been paid down. UIA similarly has issuance that also is backstopped or obligated by those, not total of 11 cities, but there's a few less that have actually also been part of the Utah interlocal agency. This particular one is solely, separately, your independent facility. So you're not cross-collateralized with any other Utopia infrastructure or network. You're not responsible for any debt payments related to any of that, neither UIA or Utopia. So it would just be solely this particular bond issue.
Thank you. Mr. Higginson, do you have anything?
You know, I think most of my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Wonderful. Councilmember Price-Yosh,
No, not right now, thanks.
do you have anything? Councilmember Bradshaw.
I'd like to thank the residents that have turned out, those that came and spoke for and those that came and spoke against, those that have engaged online, those that have emailed and called. It's always great to have a dialogue within the community. It's always great to have a chance to show our work. I believe deeply that we owe you an accounting of how we conduct ourselves in your name, how we use your assets. I think all of us here believe that we are the great beneficiaries of people that have sat in these seats before us. We will hold them for a short time, and then it will be the turn of other residents who love this city to take a turn and provide that stewardship. And I remain incredibly grateful for those that thoughtfully provided for municipal power system, for landfills, for recycling, for parks, and for trails, so that we can continue to enjoy them. This won't be the last big debate we ever have in our community. There'll be others. And I appreciate how everyone is engaged in it tonight. And if those of you that are here have continued questions, or you run into friends and neighbors that have questions, I hope you'll point them to sources where they can find accurate information. You can find all of our contact information on the city website. My mobile number's there. You're welcome to call it or text it. And I look forward to seeing this project come to completion and be another great asset for the city of Bountiful.
Thank you.
Well said.
I appreciate my colleagues on the council with me. We have spent many, many hours vigorously debating and discussing, asking questions, and looking at scenarios of how to proceed while providing infrastructure for our residents that is reliable and achievable, that everyone can sign up that would like to, and those that are comfortable with their service or lack of service or whatever their needs are, they have that choice. And I'm grateful that and hope that we can move forward in the direction that we've chosen, and time will tell whether it's on the ballot or not. And thank you for your time tonight regarding this. We will now move forward beyond the fiber discussion to our next agenda item.
Mayor Pro Tem, could I ask one personal favor?
Please.
Is Mr. Jason Holt still here? Mr. Holt, would you step out in the aisle and show everyone your shoes, please?
Those are my July shoes.
Awesome shoes. Thank you very much for sharing. That's all, Mayor.
Wonderful. We'll now consider approval of the purchase of a John Deere 624 P-Tier high lift loader from Honan Equipment in the amount of $219,377 by Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Come before you tonight to ask about replacing one of our loaders. It's a critical piece of equipment that we use down in the city shops, especially for snowplow season, loading our trucks. This one's a little bit different. It lifts a little bit higher. It's about a foot higher. The new trucks have a peak grate on the top of them, and it's a little bit harder with the truck one we have right now, but it's still workable. The one we're looking for is to replace is our 2015 loader. It's served us well over the years. And also we want to keep that as a replacement or as a backup and get rid of put our 2000 loader up for auction is our plans right now. In researching this, we found the state of Utah has a contract with John Deere, contract MA3379, and for a price of $219,377 that will meet our needs. And we found that to be the best value, and the state has already gone through the bidding process and found that to be the best price available. This equipment is part of our 10-year capital plan to replacement, and we've budgeted $225,000 in there. Staff recommends that the council approve the purchase of the John Deere 624P high lift loader from Honan Equipment in the amount of $219,377. Entertain any questions you might have.
None. Happy to make a motion. First of all, thanks for keeping it in budget.
Looks like we might have a question.
Please.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that same thing. The second large piece of equipment coming in under budget.
Yes.
This is hopefully a trend, a good,
We're
hopefully.
hoping to try to keep it that way. Equipment is still tight and difficult to get, and we're working hard to secure it.
Well, and it does not go without saying that this is due to a great deal of effort on all of the departments who are involved in these. So yay for under budget and for getting this great piece of equipment. And I would like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of this loader.
Second. Or third.
All in favor?
Aye. Charles, if it doesn't work out, just sell it to the water department.
Actually, they borrow it most of the time, so we share it.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now consider approval of the purchase of a one-ton dump truck and chassis and body from Young Chevrolet by Mr. Benson.
Yes, it's come time that we need to replace one of our one-ton service trucks that we use throughout the city. This is a dump body on here. Due to restrictions on getting chassis and everything else, we're strapped at trying to find one of these. Young Chevrolet managed to have one, and with the stipulation that the Nybeck manufacturing company put the bed on it as well. We found that to be an excellent price as well. It's coming in under government pricing as well. So the truck chassis from Young would be $49,256. The dump body would be $14,700 for a total of $63,956. This is part of our 10-year capital plan, and we'd allocated $69,000 into that budget to do this. Staff recommends that the council approve the purchase of the one-ton truck and body from Young Chevrolet in the amount of $63,956.
So moved.
Second? Or who would like to second?
Second.
All in
can
favor?
second.
Aye.
Aye.
I think you still get to vote as Mayor Pro Tem.
Wonderful. I want to. Next item is, I haven't skipped anything, right? Consider approval of the purchase of a Global V6 Air Vacuum Sweeper Truck from Dawson Infrastructure in the amount of $354,606 by Mr. Benson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Sweeping is one of our vital functions that we do to clean up the city. We need to have this, and unfortunately, these sweepers live in the worst environment there is, and the wear and tear on the equipment is just overwhelming. So we need to replace this piece of equipment. Stormwater requested quotes from several manufacturers. Only one was able to come back with a viable quote that they could deliver on and have the infrastructure here. From Global with an M4, it's the Global V6 Air Sweeper, and that's what we're looking for, a vacuum sweeper. We have the Global M4 mechanical sweeper, which we bought last year and is working out very well for us. This company has been very supportive on its maintenance and everything else and parts. So they came back with a quote of $354,606 for that sweeper. That fit within our budget that we had allocated out there of $365 for our fiscal '24 budget. Staff recommends the council approve the purchase of the Global V6 Air Vacuum Sweeper from Dawson Infrastructure Solutions for the amount of $354,606. Yes.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, may I?
You may.
Quick question. You mentioned that these have, they take a licking and keep on ticking. How long, what's the lifespan of these road sweepers?
We feel fortunate if we can get 5 to 6 years out of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the one, well.
We're actually, I
that
didn't put
answers
it
my
on here,
question,
but we
thanks.
actually have an Elgin Whirlwind that we're going to be disposing of. They'll take its place.
Any other discussion or motion?
Motion to approve the purchase of the new street sweeper.
Second.
We'll give the second to Councilmember Higginson on that run. And thank you, Mr. Benson.
Very much.
We'll now consider approval of the proposal from All Star Striping for the 2023 pavement striping contract at the unit prices in the bid tabulation by Mr. Cheney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Street striping certainly isn't a glamorous topic, but it's very necessary. We stripe about 92 miles of roadway in town every year, and we've enjoyed service from All-Star Striping for several years previously. We're happy that they are the low bid in this round of proposals and recommend that the council award the contract to them again.
I would just like to say that I disagree. Striping is sexy. And I feel a little bit like Brooke Freeburn when she said, no, Bountiful is special and striping is sexy. And I love it when we get new striping. It makes all the difference in the world to have it done, well done. It improves road safety. It's just a really important part of our infrastructure. So,
I have a question. Will they be doing any striping in our parks? Is this all streets?
This is mostly streets. Occasionally, we have them do a parking lot, stall striping, but this is intended for street striping.
Okay.
yeah, Lloyd, would you mind just, well, maybe you mentioned this, but I do think it's important to note that this striping is going to be used for our active transportation lanes, also on Bountiful Boulevard.
Yeah, this is the contract we'll use for that.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd make a motion to approve the street striping contract and the exciting bike lanes that will be striped on Bountiful Boulevard.
Second.
Oh, further discussion, maybe? And
Oh,
thanks for
further,
seconding. Is there a provision in the contract for the time of day that they can stripe?
They like to stripe at night.
I know. I've had a very lively discussion at before 2 a.m. with one of their drivers one time.
I see.
So
We can,
I just need to know to just go back to sleep, not go out and disturb the drivers if there's no provision, which I'm happy to do.
there's no prohibition in the contract for that.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. We will now have a discussion to consider the purchase of Dad the Dragon from the artist in the amount of $30,600 by Mr. Gary Hill.
This is the best item of the night, at least for one homeless dragon. So we
Homeless?
have a temporary resident in Bountiful who is very relaxed in our town square, who has been enjoyed by very many people. And we leased him for a year, and I think the input from the residents has been very, very positive. And so we can apply the lease amount toward the total purchase price. The cost remaining to adopt Dad as a permanent Bountiful resident is $30,600. And we're coming with that request to council tonight to exercise our right of first refusal and keep Dad here and not let him go to St. George, where he clearly was not appreciated by being stuck in the middle of a roundabout. Isn't that correct?
I did have a
Gary?
discussion with the mayor of St. George about Dad the Dragon, and sometimes you don't know what you've got till it's gone. That's apparently what St. George has found out, that they liked Dad, but only after he had come north for the summer.
I hear he likes the cooler temperatures.
I heard that he also likes the cooler temperatures. I think, we've been fostering him as our foster pet dragon, and we should make it permanent. And with all due respect to our friends in St. George, we gave him a spot at our best park and not just a roundabout in a random neighborhood.
Any other discussion? Looks like, go
I
please.
just was hoping that maybe Gary would be willing to just discuss super briefly the Public Art Fund, because I think that would be helpful for residents to understand how we get money or how we collect and accrue money over the course of many years for our Public Art Fund, just so they understand that this is not robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the council adopted a policy a few years ago, I want to say 5 or 6 or 7, boy, time goes fast, where we allocate 1% of all of our general fund capital projects toward public art. So if we spend, a certain amount towards a street project or something out of the general fund, we add an additional 1% into this fund. Our current balance is about $130,000 in the Public Art Fund. And so it's a great way to slowly add and has enabled us this year in particular to really get some neat things downtown. Did that answer the question? Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Dad the Dragon in the amount of $30,600.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We'd like to encourage everybody to go down and visit Dad the Dragon at the town square.